webinar. Welcome to our casual conversation today about riding the bus for your first time. I know that it's a scary experience. I've been through it myself. So we're entitling this The Basics of Riding the Bus. And this is our first in a series of 3. And this is going to be focusing on fixed route. So my name is Shelley Richardson. I'm the Executive Director of the Statewide Independent Living Council. My preferred pronouns are she and her. And I am sitting in my work office, and I am a white female with red hair. I wear glasses. I have a mixed color shirt on, and in my background is a gray wall with an abstract flower painting hanging on it. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ed to introduce himself.
My name's Ed Heflin. I work at Western Illinois University. I have 25 years experience in public transportation and also a number of years at a human service agency which served individuals with disabilities. My pronouns are he and him, preferred pronouns. I'm a white male, blonde hair. I have glasses on and a blue shirt.
And Ed's also at his work office, yeah.
Yeah, this is my work office. And also I've served 2 terms on the Statewide Independent Living Council.
Ed also has a brother that has a disability. So let's just dive right into the topic. So we're going to start with some definitions of types of bus routes that you can ride. And I'm going to turn it over to Ed to give you a definition of the 3 types.
Thanks, Shelley. I'm trying not to use transit babble because those of us that have worked in the field for a long time have all these fancy terms. So I'm trying to speak about it in as plain as language as possible. But a fixed route is essentially service with prescribed routes that are on set schedules. There are designated bus stops. This is the type of service that is found in nearly all urban areas. And in rural areas, there are only 3 cities that have it. And those cities are Galesburg, Macomb, and Quincy. The second type of service is complementary paratransit. That's complementary with an E, meaning adjunct or in addition to. People with disabilities who can't use the fixed route, they can use what's called the ADA complementary paratransit service. And I do need to say up front that this service wouldn't exist without the ADA Act having taken effect, because this is a type of service that is labor intensive and time consuming, and the big systems would rather just run fixed route. But the ADA Act is responsible for this fantastic service, which operates on the same days and same times as the fixed route. And at a minimum, it must be offered within 3/4 of a mile on each side of the fixed route. It also requires advanced scheduling by the customer. And people using this service must be certified by the transit system they use. And I should say quickly that if you're certified for fixed route wherever you live and you want to go somewhere else, there's something called transit reciprocity, and all you'd have to do is contact the fixed route service of the city you want to go to, fax them your certification, and then you should be eligible to ride on that city's route when you go visit.
Now, Ed, what is usually involved in that certification process, just briefly?
Well, since this is something that the fixed route providers don't like a whole lot, they'll require you get some medical information to them, just something that proves that you need to be using the complementary paratransit. And also there's such a thing as temporary certification. So therefore, let's say I broke a leg and I'm just unable to get to the fixed route, I might have temporary certification. What the systems do is every so often they'll go through, and if they see somebody with temporary certification, they'll contact me to see whether I'm still eligible for the complementary paratransit. Okay, the third type of service is called on-demand service, but it's also known as demand response. This is a type of service you'll find in rural areas. And essentially what this is complimentary paratransit for everybody that wants to ride. It requires advanced scheduling. It'll have the smaller vehicles, such as the type that are used in ADA complimentary paratransit. A big feature of this is ride sharing, which is, it's really inefficient to operate a service like this as a taxi. So they'll pick me up. Let's say I'm using the service, and along the way to where I'm going, they'll pick up other people along the way. Ride sharing is just a part of it that has to occur. In addition, there are three types of service. One type of service is curb to curb, where you have to be out at the curb, and wherever your destination is, they'll let you off at the curb. The next type of service is door to door, in which they pick you up at your door and then they'll take you to the door of your destination. The third type is door through door, in which they'll pick you up at your door, but can actually deliver you through the door to your destination in case they feel you need extra assistance. Now, I will tell you, some rural transit systems don't understand this very well, and so they think we'll just provide curb to curb because there's less liability, but actually there's more liability. I know one system that did that. They left somebody off at the curb, an individual that used a wheelchair for mobility, and the person promptly tipped over into the street. So that it's actually greater liability. And the reason I'm telling you this is, if you encounter a rural transit service that is telling you we can only do curb to curb and you feel you need more than that, what you need to do is talk to the system director, because it is possible to have a more enhanced type of service. Those are the three types of service, Shelley.
All right, thank you, Ed. And like I said earlier, today we're going to focus on riding a fixed route transit. So those are the buses, either the big buses that you see running around a larger urban area, or the runaround buses that go to the same place every day. They have a route that they run every day, or several routes throughout the area. So let's talk about what you should do before you before you are going to take your ride. Did you know that many centers for independent living, and we have 22 across this state, many centers offer transit training. So if you are afraid of getting on the bus, you don't understand the routes, you can request that there be a trainer that can come along with you and help you through those first few rides, so that you understand how to navigate the bus system. Also, many of the mass transit districts, if you call their office, they will offer somebody that will be able to do some transit training with you. So it kind of takes some of the scariness out of the situation when you can have practice runs before you have to actually do it on your own for the first time. Now, when you contact somebody to ask about this transit training, you need to let them know what accommodations you're going to need during that training. Do you need a sign language interpreter? When you're riding the bus by yourself, you won't necessarily have to have one. You'll be able to navigate that yourself. But in order to understand the basics from the trainer, you will need an ASL interpreter to go along to help you navigate that system. If you need accommodations that say you have to figure out how to make change, how you're going to give change to the person if you have mobility impairments, you need to let your trainer know that. Please, before you go on that training, let them know also if you use any kind of mobility device, wheelchair, walker, cane, make sure that they know all of this ahead of time. Do you have any thoughts on this, Ed?
No, I think you covered that, Shelley.
Okay, so decide where you want to go with that trainer. hopefully you will decide that it's going to be the route that you're going to be taking most. Maybe it's from your house to work, or it's from your house to the grocery store or to the shopping mall. Make up your mind where you would want to go most and use that as your first training exercise. So you let that trainer know what you are going to be doing. Now, the trainer is going to work with you about your bus schedule, what you will need to, what route you will need to ride, where you will need to pick it up. Now, I want to tell you, many systems have many different routes, and those maps that you get, they're really hard to figure out. It took me a long time to master figuring out those maps. So if you pick up one of those, maps that tells you the route you want to ride, and then you're trying to figure out the schedules, please understand, I understand that you are going to be overwhelmed when you first look at that. So what I suggest to you is that you have your transit trainer help you with that, reading that map. But also, if you are alone and you need to use a different route than what you're used to, rather than using that those system route maps, you could call the dispatch office at the place that is providing the bus service and ask the dispatcher what time you need to be at a certain place in order to get on the bus, and vice versa, what time you need to be, about what time you're going to be coming home, and where that bus stop is, and what time you need to get on the bus. And did your brother have any problem with trying to read maps and things?
Yeah, he did, Shelley, but the drivers were helpful in case he got on the bus and then didn't realize that he knew how to get to where he was going. They explained where the transfer station was, et cetera, et cetera. And also I encouraged him to call the system ahead of time. If he was going to go somewhere and he just didn't know where to start, just call the system, and sometimes they'll help you map out your entire schedule.
I know that I was really afraid when I got on the bus for the first time because I'm low vision. So I wasn't familiar with where the bus was going, and I was afraid I was going to miss my stop and not understand where to get off. So what I did is I asked the driver to help me when I got on the bus. I said, this is the place that I need to step off of the bus. Could you please call out the bus stop that's coming up and let me know it's coming up and alert me? And I have never had a driver that wasn't cooperative about giving me that information. They've always been very helpful. So please don't be afraid to speak up and ask for help when you need it. You do not need to be afraid.
Another thing, Shelley, is I remember when I first tried using fixed route transit when I lived in Peoria. I couldn't get it. I just couldn't figure it out. The people at the bus stops waiting next to me, they were helpful also.
I found that too. I knew that they were riding too, and I could go to them and ask them, hey, where is this bus? With me being low vision, I would be at a transit station and it would have all the signs, and sometimes I couldn't read all of the signs. So I just asked for help. Could you please tell me where, under what sign this bus stops? And they would help me right there at the station. Again, please do not be afraid to ask people around you. You will be surprised how helpful they can be.
Exactly.
Right. So I want to talk about the types of bus stops that you will encounter. The first type of a bus stop is a transit station. This is a place where many buses from many different routes will pull into this station. And as I was just talking about the signs, usually it will have the name of the route on the sign, where you need to stand to catch the bus, or when you get off the bus, you will be getting off the bus right there. So that's, transit stations are nice. Usually they have an indoor room where you can go and sit and keep warm while you're waiting on the buses. They also have benches near those near each of those signs where you can sit and wait and chat with those around you. But please be aware that at most of these stations, they do not have restroom facilities. So make sure you use the restroom before you leave the house, because usually the facilities there are only there for the drivers to use, and they have to use a key to get in. The other type of bus stop that you will encounter is usually on a corner. Now, there will be places within the route that will be designated stops, and the dispatcher can let you know where the designated stop is, where the stop on the schedule is. But some places will allow you to get on the bus at a corner, as long as you are able to flag them down. So if the bus is coming towards you and you're standing on the corner, you need to raise your hand and wave it and let the bus know that you need the bus to stop and pick you up. And I, again, want to ask you, or encourage you to ask the dispatcher at the bus facility if that is okay for you to catch a bus at the corner. You will not find a bus that will let you off in the middle of a block. They go to the corner because it's the safest place to stop for everybody on the bus and for the traffic that is coming toward them and the traffic that is behind them. Also, please wait for the bus to pull off. If you're going to be crossing the street for any reason, please wait for the bus to pull off. Do not step in front of the bus for any reason to cross the street. Always cross the street behind the bus. Any thoughts on this?
Nope. I think you
Okay.
covered it, Sally.
All right. When you're coming to the bus stop, please arrive early. Now, I know they have times that they're supposed to be at a certain pickup point, but sometimes they may be a few minutes early. And please allow for that. I always try to get to my bus stop 10 minutes earlier than the bus was scheduled to be arriving, just so that I wouldn't miss it. On the flip side of this, please be patient when you're at the bus stop and you're waiting on the bus, because many times the bus will run into unforeseen problems before they get there. Maybe slower traffic, maybe it took a little longer at a previous stop than they expected. So be patient and wait for the bus. If the bus is more than 20 minutes late, please make sure that you have the phone number of the bus station with you. And you can call that bus station and ask if there was any problem with that bus, so that you know if you need to maybe go back home and wait for a different time, or if maybe for some odd reason you missed it and you didn't realize it. Again, you're going to find the dispatchers are very helpful to you and will be very glad to ask you those questions. In fact, they sometimes will even contact the bus driver themselves and ask, how far are you away from this stop? And then the dispatcher will let you know the bus is maybe 5 minutes away. Please be patient and wait. The next thing I wanted to cover for you is about getting your money ready or your bus pass ready before you even board the bus. If you know that it's going to cost $1.25 to get on the bus, please have the correct change. The bus driver is not able to make change for you. If you put in a 5, they can't give you money back. So if it's $1.25, have $1.25 either in a bill in a quarter or 5 quarters, $1.25. Have it ready, because the bus is trying to keep on schedule, and if everybody that gets on has to dig in their pockets for their change while they're getting on the bus, it holds up the whole bus route. Or you could purchase a bus pass. And that is a very simple solution. If you know you're going to be on the bus quite frequently during the month, it may save you money to buy a pass. And then when you get on the bus, all you have to do is show the driver your bus pass. Also, if you know you are going to be transferring to another bus to get to your final destination, ask the driver when you get on for a transfer. They will give you that transfer, and it usually doesn't cost you any extra money unless it's for a long, long distance in the route. But that transfer will be free. You can only use a transfer once, but hang on to that transfer when they give it to you so that you can hand it to the driver on the next bus and you won't have to pay any more money. Anything to add about transfers, Ed?
Well, as far as getting your money ready,
Mm-hmm.
because buses are on such a tight schedule, if you buy a bus pass, generally a bus pass for say 10 rides is going to cost a lot less than if you just bought 10 rides individually with your money. I do know drivers greatly prefer the bus pass because it's just a quick thing to do versus having to deal with the money. So, and then, like I said, they're discounted lots of times too. So it would help speed things up if you bought passes instead of using money.
Now, Ed, where can they get those passes usually?
Well, call the system, but generally you can buy them at any transfer station, or well, in the city you would. Some transfer stations you won't be able to, but generally it's the main location of the transit system. I don't know about the drivers, whether or not they would have any to sell. Due to
I know on the fixed route that I rode, the drivers didn't have them.
the most don't because it slows them down too much. So you're going to have to do that ahead of time. But if you do that ahead of time, you're really going to save a lot of time on your individual trips.
Yeah, and I know that there have been times that people have got on the bus and maybe there will be several of them and they didn't have their correct change and they had to dig for their correct change. And it has actually held up the bus so much that I was really worried that I would miss my next bus that I had to use my transfer for. So I try to always be mindful to have the correct change ready and know ahead of time how much it's going to cost me to ride that bus.
There is one other thing I'd like to add. I wouldn't make a habit of this, but generally, if you're short a little bit on your fare money, they'll let you go ahead and ride. But if you keep doing that over and over, they're going to be on to you and it won't happen. So try to use that only in an emergency situation.
That's a good point. I've had some people I've seen ride that had did that too many times and the bus driver wouldn't help them out. And luckily, one of us that was on the bus would help them out with, our extra change. A tip you may want to do is start a change jar with your loose change so that you have change for the bus fare. It makes it easier. So now your bus is stopped. You have your money ready. You're ready to get on the bus. Let's talk about some rules about getting on the bus. First of all, when the bus stops, always let everybody that's coming off of the bus get off of the bus first. Don't try to get on the bus until everybody has gotten off the bus. This includes wheelchair users because the bus has to use their ramp to for those of us that use mobility devices to be able to come down that ramp. And it's dangerous for you to be trying to come on the bus when there's still a passenger that uses a wheelchair or a walker trying to get off the bus. So please be patient about that. Also, many of the larger buses have a thing that they call kneeling. And that means that the platform that you step up on to get in the bus door can be lowered. So if you have a hard time stepping up and they haven't lowered that for you, you could ask them if they could please lower that for you so that you could get on the bus more easily. Again, don't be afraid to ask if you have those kinds of problems. Also, again, I wanted to remind you, please, when you get on, don't be afraid to ask the driver any questions you have or for any assistance that you need. Now, let's talk about if you do use a wheelchair, what to expect when you're getting on the bus with your wheelchair. Ed, would you like to add some things to this?
Well, with fixed route, I don't know if it's like the demand response, but the drivers on the demand response, that's what I'm familiar with. They will assist you. They'll put you onto the lift, bring you up, and then they're trained to properly strap you in to a location. You really need to be have your wheels strapped down. That's something that's extremely important. And so many people today have the large mobility devices that are really outsized and are beyond the standard definition for a wheelchair. The way that's handled is the drivers are instructed to strap it down in the best manner possible, realizing you can't do it completely proper because it's such an outsized device.
Yes, so don't be surprised when you to be told that you must be strapped in. Also, don't be surprised that they will reach over the front of you to grab a side strap and put over your shoulder and onto the other side of the wheelchair. So that will happen, and you need to expect that. That is the type of loading that happens even on what we call the runabout buses that are actual fixed route buses, but they go to many of the smaller communities within the fixed route system. Now, if it's a large bus, what they will do is they will see that you have a mobility device and they will press a button and it will fold out a ramp for you. And then you will enter the bus by rolling up on that ramp and inside of the bus. And then the driver will assist you to strap your mobility device down. So that's what to expect if that happens. Now, if you're not using a mobility device, such as a wheelchair, you have a choice of where you would like to sit. Most generally, the front seat areas are reserved for those of us that are getting much older. They say they're reserved for the elderly. So if it's possible for you to sit in a seat further back, please reserve those seats for the much older of us passengers that are getting on and have mobility issues. If you are one of those people, such as myself, you can feel free to use those front seats as long as somebody with a mobility device doesn't need that area. So you have a choice whether you sit toward the front of the bus or whether you sit in the back of the bus. Now, I want to warn you about bringing things onto the bus with you. Let's say you're going to school, you're going to have, maybe your computer, a book bag, things like that. Those are okay because you can carry them yourself. But say you're going to the grocery store and you want to return with your groceries. You need to be able to have only the amount of groceries that you are able to load and unload by yourself the first time on the bus and the first time off the bus. The driver has no obligation to allow you to enter the bus a second time to continue to bring bags off. It's also a hazard for other people that are trying to ride the bus. So remember, only take or buy enough items that you can carry in one load, either on your lap or on your arms. Also, something to know ahead of time. There is no eating or drinking allowed on the bus. If you're taking a packed lunch or food in your bag, you can bring that, but you can't eat it on the bus. If you're bringing bottled beverages that have a lid, you will be able to come on the bus. But say you went to McDonald's and you wanted to get on the bus and you had a big cup of soda with a straw in it, they will make you dispose of that before you get on the bus. So please keep that in mind. Have you seen any other things about this, Ed?
One thing regarding the carry-ons,
Uh-huh.
if you think you might have a lot of packages on the trip you're going to take, you might call the system to see if they have any exceptions to that carry-on rule. But generally, the situation is what you just said. It's basically what you can get off with one trip.
That would be a good idea. One thing that I did when I was going to be going to Walmart is I did have a little fold-up cart, and I would put my things in that cart. And as long as I was able to pull that cart out of the aisleway where nobody had a chance to trip on that cart, then they would allow that cart. Also, if you're coming on the bus with a stroller, please be advised your child cannot stay in the stroller. You will have to hold the child on your lap for the duration of the trip, and they will usually ask you to fold up the stroller so it takes up less room. I know I've seen many a mom surprised about that they had to hold their child during the trip. All right, so let's move on to what you should and should not do during the bus ride. The first thing I want to say is make sure that you stay seated, because if you're up walking and that bus has to make a sudden stop, you're going to go flying to the floor to the front of the bus and you're going to get hurt. So once you have chosen a seat, please stay in that seat for the duration of the trip. It's very important for your safety and for the safety of those around you. If you're going to be using your cell phone during the trip, please make sure that you keep your conversation in a low tone. Nobody appreciates having to be witness to everybody's phone call on the bus. Also, if you're going to be listening to music, please have headphones or earbuds to put in, and make sure that the music isn't so loud that the other people in the bus, even though you have your earbuds in, can still hear the music. You do not want the driver to have to tell you to turn down your music, because that will get a little embarrassing. So please, please make sure that you do that. Let's talk about taking cues from the people around you who are sitting around you. Let's say the bus is crowded and you have to sit next to someone. You don't have a seat to yourself. Please be mindful if they are looking at their phone or they're trying to read. That's probably a signal that they're not really wanting to have a conversation. So perhaps take the cue from that person that maybe they're not interested in talking. Now, if you feel like they would be interested in talking, or if they're talking to you, that's fine. Say you don't want to talk to somebody, just politely say, "Oh, excuse me, I'm trying to check my messages." Okay, be very polite to the riders around you. Now, let's say you encounter a rider that is being rude or mean to you. How could you handle that? Ed, how could a person handle that?
I would go through the driver if it were me. Drivers are trained to de-escalate issues. So I'd start with that, but that brings up another point I wanted to make. Some people are very extroverted, like my twin sister, and she just want to chat up the driver the whole time. That's a bad idea, because the driver generally doesn't speak to the passengers too much, and it's not because they're rude, it's because they need to stay focused on driving. So unless it's an emergency, such as what you just mentioned, Shelley, it's best not to ask drivers questions while they are driving.
That's right. I have seen arguments break out on a bus. I've been on a bus so much, I've seen that happen. And the passenger that was being threatened had to alert the driver, and the driver took care of the situation. I would tell you, please try not to engage and get angry with the person. Engaging is not going to help the situation. And what may happen is, if you're engaging too, the bus driver may stop the bus and ask both you and the other passenger to get off the bus. and you may be told that you can't ride the bus anymore. So do not engage in any kind of confrontation. Alert the driver, and the driver may actually tell you to change your seat. That could be a tactic. And I will warn you again about changing seats so often when the bus is moving, but there may be a time that you have to change your seat in order to get out of a bad situation.
You know, the driver also might use their microphone, get a hold of the central dispatch, and they might end up having to pull over. And I've seen them do that to have somebody else come on the vehicle to handle a situation.
Yes. By the way, just a heads up, if you're an alcoholic drinker and you appear to be very drunk before you get on the bus, be advised that the bus driver may not allow you on the bus. They may consider you a liability. So please keep that in mind. If you're going out during the day and you're going to do some day drinking, I know this is probably a laughable subject for some, but it is serious consideration. So please remember that before you even decide that you're going to get on the bus. Okay, I think I've covered everything that we need to talk about for during our ride. Do you think we've covered everything, Ed?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's move on to getting off of the bus. There are pull strings or buttons at the side of the bus. The strings, the pull strings are usually along the top of the windows. And you can reach up whenever you want to get off the bus, and you can pull that down, and a little bell will sound to let the driver know that you want to get off at the next corner. If they are able and it's safe to let you off at the next corner, they will do so. But please be advised, if you are at a traffic light, they probably will not let you off at an intersection with a traffic light, because they will deem that as being too dangerous to let you off right there. But they will let you off at the next corner that is safe for you to be able to get off. Also, please be in mind, if there's not a string on the bus, there will be a button that will say to alert the driver that you need off. And again, if you don't know where to get off, ask the driver for some help, and they will help you with that. So that's the first thing about getting off of the bus. Now, let's say you're trying to figure out what door to use to get off the bus. Some of the bigger buses have two doors. There's a door in the back and a door in the front. Most people, when they're getting off a bigger bus, will exit through the back door. Some transit routes require you to exit from that back door. But like the transit route that I used, if I was on a big bus that had two doors, they allowed you to get off at either door, either the front door or the back door. So make sure that you check around you. Make sure you have all of your belongings. It is a very scary situation to leave your belongings on the bus. Believe me, I've left my purse on the bus before. It was very nerve-wracking. And luckily, a very honest passenger turned it in to the driver, and the driver at the end of their shift brought it back to the transit station, and I was able to go the next day to retrieve my belongings. But make sure that you have everything with you that you came on the bus with before you exit the bus.
Shelley, I want to say something about the door. I found that most of the systems, if you're ambulatory, they prefer you to, of course, enter at that front door, but they want everybody that's ambulatory to enter through that back door. And that way you got a clear division of front doors for entering and the back doors for exiting.
That is one thing that your transit trainer who is familiar with
Exactly.
your bus system is going to be able to clear up from you, those questions. Now, again, when you're getting off the bus, if you're not at your final destination, make sure that you have your transfer out and ready, so that when you board the next bus, you're not having to find your transfer, but you actually have it with you. And hand that to the driver and follow the same procedures that we talked about until you reach your final destination. I hope this clears up for you riding the fixed route bus. Hopefully this helped you not be as scared about riding the bus for the first time. And hopefully we have given you any valuable tips and thoughts. Anything to add, Ed?
Well, one thing I'd like to say is bus drivers are generally safer drivers than regular drivers.
Yes, they are.
They're drug tested, they're well
Mhm.
trained. So feel secure that you're going to get a safe trip.
Yes, I have never been on a bus where I felt like a driver was driving erratically. It's always been a safe trip. And if there's been any kind of problem, it's usually been because of another vehicle's fault.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I thoroughly trust my drivers on these bus routes. And believe me, they are spot checked. Sometimes their supervisors will be following them on their route in a non-marked car so that they can check on their drivers and make sure that their drivers are driving as expected. And they know that. So not only do they care about getting you there safely, they care about keeping their job.
Exactly.
So again, if you have any questions about your local bus route or your local fixed route, please contact the nearest Center for Independent Living. You will find them by contacting our website at silk, SILC of Illinois.org. That's all spelled out, silkofillinois.org. And you can click on there and we have a link to show you what Center for Independent Living serves your county. All right, that's all that we have for this first video. Please stay tuned for the upcoming videos that will talk more about door-to-door service and complimentary paratransit service. See you next time. Have a good day.